Oh, what a splendid day of cooking the books. And now we rest.
FBI, open up!
That doesn't sound good. By now, I'm sure many of us are well aware of the sheer chaos that's been unfolding around Juventus over the past few weeks, or should I say years. So it's safe to say that I'm a little late in making a video about all of it. But as my dad said when I finally got a girlfriend, better late than never. All the same, while the situation is bad, it just seems to keep getting worse. In late January 2023, the old lady was docked 15 points in the current Serie A season for inflation of player transfer fees and capital gains fraud. In addition to that, in the coming weeks, prosecutors are prepared to request a further 20 points be deducted from their tally, with this additional deduction being for irregularities in their financial reporting. Just as you thought that Juve were crawling their way out of a couple of uncharacteristically bad seasons, boom. It now seems apparent that
The secret ingredient is crime.
I feel before I go any further, I have to preface that Juve are more than likely not the only club in Italy, Europe, or the world for that matter that deal in shady practices. They just seem to be amongst the only ones that are ever singled out and caught, which I must admit is odd. This story is ever-changing, so expect updates. But as the ramifications of this pertaining to Italian football in general become more damning by the day, I thought it was a good moment to take a look at what we know. With that being said, what on earth has Juventus gotten themselves into? Yo, what's going on everyone? Really hope you're all doing well. I'm Tinashe and welcome back to Football Iconic. These past few weeks have been a roller coaster for Juventus, so much so that it really makes you wonder, where is Paul Pogba in all of this? With all that out the way, a good place for us to start all of this is with something that we're all trying to achieve. Before we go any further, I think it's important that we all get on the same page when it comes to amortization in football transfers. As is common practice in football, when a club buys a player on a multi-year contract, the fee for that player is often spread out across the entire duration of that player's contract as per the books. But when a player is sold, the full amount for that player is reflected in the books immediately. So let's say Club A buys me from Club B for my very correct valuation of 2 billion euros on a 4-year contract. As per Club A's books, 500 million would be reduced or amortized per season over the duration of my contract. On the flip side, Club B can now post a 2 billion euro capital gain to their books immediately. It's a little accounting trick that allows clubs to add plus signs to their books while also minimizing the amount of negative signs. Capital gain, or Plusvalenca in Italian, is an extremely important factor in balancing of books for clubs, which in turn is important for things like financial fair play as well as many other regulations under jurisdictions outside of UEFA. Sound good? Good. Here's where the issue lies. Deciding how much a player is worth has been murky water for aeons at this point, particularly for high-profile players. We see negotiations go on for what seems like forever these days due to one side's perceived valuation over the other. This leaves plenty of room for a little something known as valuation inflation. It's got a nice ring to it. I can see the appeal. In my previous example, I referred to my market valuation as 2 billion euros. Only problem with this is that I'm actually worth about $5 on a good day. You see, Club B are in the red and need 2 billion in capital gains to balance their books. Do you see? My valuation has been wrongly and intentionally inflated. Allegedly. Enough games. A real-life example included the sales of Miralem Pjanic and Arthur Melo from Juventus to Barcelona and vice versa in 2020. Note that this was not a swap deal, officially at least. Pjanic was sold for 60 million euros while Arthur was sold for 72 million euros. So aside from about 12 million euros, no actual money exchanged hands. It all went down in Excel. It's a good bit of business until you realize that neither of these players were even remotely close to being worth that amount of money. Now, I usually don't like to trash players on this channel, especially without giving a detailed justification for why I feel that way, but neither of these players did anything close to what can be considered an impact for their new club based on their respective fees. That's just my opinion, at least. In the words of ESPN's Sid Lowe at the time the transfers went through, The accountancy is more creative than the midfielders are. Anyway, back to the bigger picture. Both clubs were and still are cash-strapped. This neat little Excel trick allowed them not only to inflate their player sale prices, but their books. And that finally brings us to the crux of the story. Back in 2021, investigations regarding Plusvalenca were conducted by several Italian regulatory bodies. I do have to mention that this investigation involved several clubs, not just Juventus. 62 questionable transfers between 2018 and 2021 were investigated, with 42 involving Juventus. Notably, the most high value of the transfers was that of Victor Osimhen, who moved from Lille to Napoli. This was a players plus money deal, which seems to have attracted the wrong kind of attention. But like I said, it's tough to prove that a player is worth a certain amount and that their value has been inflated. So in early 2022, the entire investigation collapsed. The Plusvalenca case was dismissed, but Juve were still under the microscope regarding multiple completely different cases. Cases pertaining to false accounting, below-board salary payments to players, and market manipulation. We'll talk more on those a bit later. But for now, all we really need to know is that those parallel investigations unearthed evidence during a raid of Juventus' offices that led to the reopening of the capital gains case in December of 2022. Oh, and by the way, 1 month before this investigation reconvened, in the midst of all the chaos and all the parallel ongoing investigations going on around the club, the entire Juventus board resigned, which is not an admission of guilt, but it's still crazy timing. By January of 2023, a verdict was reached, a points deduction of 15 points, the banning of several former Juventus execs from Italian football, including former president Andrea Agnelli, who was banned for 24 months, and who was also coincidentally a significant proponent of the Super League. It's easy to see why. Former director Fabio Paratici, who was banned for 30 months and who is also the current managing director of Tottenham Hotspur. Ballon d'Or winner and former vice president Pavel Nedved, who was banned for 8 months, also the reason Thierry Henry does not have a Ballon d'Or. But I digress. Like I said at the start, if Juventus are guilty, I'm pretty sure that several teams are also guilty of the exact same thing. As per Gazzetta dello Sport, a highly prestigious Italian newspaper, capital gains of this nature are under investigation by regulatory bodies throughout Italy. All the same, Juventus have been hit by far the hardest. The evidence against them, the wiretaps, the leaked documents, the messages, it must all be pretty damning. Then again, maybe it's all just a witch hunt. After all, attacking Juve is now truly a national sport. The words of Luciano Moggi, Juventus managing director during Calciopoli, a scandal which got Juventus relegated for match manipulation. The man is banned from any and all football-related activities in Italy for life. So, there's that. Does everyone remember that global virus thingy that thrust the world into turmoil back in 2020? Just me? Anyway, for hundreds of millions, if not billions of people, the effects of the pandemic led to businesses realizing major losses and not being able to pay their employees. Football teams, and more specifically, already cash-strapped Juventus, were no exception. Because of this, the club was forced to withhold the wages of players to keep things pushing. And because the players were so generous, Juve announced in March of 2020 that they would make a €90 million saving after players agreed to reductions in March, April, May, and June of 2020. I love it when all the boys band together for a common goal. Yeah, so a bunch of wiretaps, leaked documents, and transcripts all showed that, in reality, only one of the 4 months in question involved reduced salaries. The wiretaps in question involved conversations between Juventus lawyers and executives where they discussed a, quote, secret document, unquote, regarding Cristiano Ronaldo and how they, quote, will jump down our throats, end quote, if it's revealed. There was the infamous leaked WhatsApp group chat where Giorgio Chiellini openly discussed that the 4-month reduction press release was all for show and that the players would definitely be getting paid. Also for them to keep it a secret. Above all of that, there are financial results from 2019, 2020, and 2021 which simply just do not add up. All of this and more contributed to a case known as Prisma, which is the very same case that led to the reopening of the Plusvalenca case. It's all connected. Don't you see? Anyway, the worst could be yet to come, as the full ramifications of the Prisma case itself are yet to be fully realized. Things could still get far more ugly. Time will tell. Now that we're all on the same page, I think it's a pretty safe assumption to make that things haven't exactly gone according to plan for the old lady. This is obviously an evolving scandal which seems to have a new chapter coming out every other day. Just the other day, we were seeing reports that Juventus's parent company have no plans to inject new finances into the club until at least 2025. If true, that information puts massive question marks over the club's very near future dealings in the market at the very least. Juventus were in 3rd place right before the deduction. At the time of recording this video, they are in 10th with 21 games played. All I can say for these boys is that
it's not looking good, bruv.
Adding on to that, all I can say for Serie A as a whole is that
it's not looking good.
If you're a fan of any other Italian club and you're reveling in the fact that the only Italian team that has made it to a European Cup final since 2010 is collapsing, you might want to think again. As maybe not the biggest fan, but still a fan nonetheless of the football played in Italy, I feel like the league is pretty underappreciated. Of course, one of the major reasons for that is that it's not as flashy or sensational as the Premier League or La Liga when it comes to players, or I guess maybe just the general spectacle of things. But I think it also has to do with the fiascos that go on off the pitch as much as anything else. Calciopoli ruined the reputation of Italian football in ways that are extremely difficult to put into numbers, and in my opinion, Serie A has not come anywhere near reaching the heights of popularity that it did back then, outside of Italy at least. We're talking 2006-ish. The quality is still there, don't get me wrong. I'm specifically referring to public sentiment here. Manchester City are giving them a run for their money at the moment, but to this very day, Calciopoli is probably still the biggest proven scandal in the history of club football. The last thing the league needed was yet another massive scandal, just as the race for first place was becoming more and more exciting each year. Also, expect a Man City video when the confusion has cleared up a bit around that. As for Massimiliano Allegri, he's seen better days. The team really do have their work cut out for them. I get that it might be hard for some people to feel sorry for these players, specifically the ones that were complicit in the fraud and were part of the private yet now viral WhatsApp chain. However, the chaos behind this ordeal is sure to be something that can do no good for them as they embark on the remainder of what is going to likely be a hellish second half of the season. Then again, it's worth mentioning that if any team can bounce back from a scandal, it's probably Juventus. They've done it before, after all. Juventus is like a 7-headed hydra. Cut off one of its heads and another one appears. It never gives up, and its strength is in its culture. Juve captain Leonardo Bonucci wrote this in an Instagram story following the points deduction. I love the solidarity, I truly do. I do wonder if Bonucci is aware of what eventually became of the hydra though. There we have it. Let me know what you guys think about this crazy Juventus story. Feel free to follow all the socials. That's all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.